Hey everybody, I thought it would be fun to film a live episode. So I've gone through as many of the games as I could watch today, which, again, if you're new to me and this channel, then you probably don't know, I guess. But I have three TVs going. Generally, I set up as much of a football wall as I can take in. So I've watched 7 games today, most recently what we're talking about today, the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. So I thought that'd be fun to do. I'm just going to film a reaction video, something that's going to be posted probably tonight for the masses with SEO and graphics and all that stuff. But since I'm going to be doing that, hell, why not just make it live? So, first and foremost, I want to also everybody. Well, actually, let me just do the intro to the video here. New England Patriots versus Seattle Seahawks reaction video. I want to remind everybody, Underdog TV. I am completely impartial. I do not care who it plays. I don't care who wins. I don't care who loses. I don't root for a team anymore in the NFL. Long story short, if you're new to this channel, I grew up a Washington, now called football team fan. Dan Snyder completely ruined the joy of rooting for that organization for me. So about 5 years ago, I moved away from Dan Snyder and I got more involved with fantasy sports, which I've now been playing for like over 25 years at this point. And so, yes, I'm completely impartial. I watch these games for fantasy. I watch these games for daily fantasy, and I watch these games for gambling. It's completely selfish, but I enjoy it. So I put out completely unbiased content. Now, throughout the week, I was hemming and hawing. Actually, early in the week with New England +4 was the line. I took Seattle to cover the spread. Later in the week, I waffled and I changed my mind. I thought these two teams are so evenly matched. For me, these two teams, I do power rankings every week. They were firmly in the top 10. I figured, no crowd. I know it's a home game for Seattle, but there's no crowd there. There's no 12th man, rocking the stadium or anything like that. I figured that this game was probably a field goal either way. I thought that 4 points was too much for this particular matchup. So I went to New England. I would have lost the bet. I actually didn't make a bet in this one. I just enjoyed it. One of my rules, by the way, in betting is to never bet against Bill Belichick. And I don't do that. Another rule of mine is to never bet against Russell Wilson. So when those two forces collide, I stay away. I enjoyed the game, loved it. And two key takeaways for me is one, Seattle. I wanted to see coming into this game how well Seattle's offense would play against New England's defense. Now, coming to the season, again, if you follow the channel, I know that New England lost some leadership pieces on defense. I think that's important. New England also lost some pieces to COVID opt-outs, but they came out last week. They played fantastic. I wanted to see what this New England defense and the Seattle offense, how they would match up against each other. Now, I had a pretty good feel about how New England would try to match up against Seattle, so I wanted to see what the execution looked like, both on the offensive line for Seattle versus the Patriots defensive line. But I also wanted to see how I'll be honest with everybody out there, Seahawks fans, you'll probably be, if you saw my videos during the week, you'll probably be laughing and smiling at this point. But I thought Gilmore would be more successful in locking down DK Metcalf. I came away very impressed, not to say I wasn't before. DK Metcalf is a stud. I don't think that's a surprise to a lot of people, especially in the Pacific Northwest. But for him to go after, there was one catch, I think it was late in the second half, caught a ball down the sideline and just basically lowered his shoulder and pushed Gilmore up the sideline for another 5 yards. Lockett, I think, was more of a decoy throughout the game. I was expecting more Greg Olsen, but you saw some of I think DJ Moore, was it Swain as well, caught a ball. But, I figured it would be more of the unheralded guys in Seattle. I wanted to see if those guys could execute. Well, DK Metcalf kind of blew that theory out of the water to a certain extent. But Seattle definitely did their thing with their other players too. Let me go dig into the stats real quick, just the Seattle Seahawks offense, since I'm talking about it. So Russell Wilson, I was never, hey, what's up, Martin? I was never concerned about Russell Wilson at all. Again, you don't bet against Russell Wilson. 21 to 28. Out of those 21 completions, 5 of them were touchdowns. He's just so freaking good. And it drives me crazy out there. And I say this every single time because I don't want people to think I'm a fanboy. I don't like Russell Wilson. And in fact, again, I don't root for anything other than my wallet. So if I had money on the Seattle Seahawks, I'd be rooting for him. Don't get me wrong. But I don't prefer Seattle. I mentioned at the top, I grew up a Washington, now football team fan. The last few times the Washington football team has been in the playoffs, Seattle has knocked them out. I have no love for the Seattle team. Pete Carroll kind of bugs me, but he's a very good coach, and I respect with this organization, and I respect the hell out of Russell Wilson. And, bias, I really honestly take it out because you can't be good at betting if you come in with a bias. And I bet on Russell Wilson, and he comes through time and time again. I will get to the Patriots, though, because I saw the end of this game, and I know it was in their fingertips. I know it's in their grasp, so I'll get to them in a bit. Chris Carson, 17 for 72 and 4.2 yards. I did not think that Chris Carson would be over 4 yards per carry in this game. So that's a testament, I think, to the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. And for me, when I'm handicapping these games, not only for fantasy football, but, for betting as well, when I want to know, look, the Seahawks and the Saints, they're going to have, they're going to have a reconciliation somewhere because those are my top two teams right now in the NFC. And I always talk about the Saints run defense. Is that Saints run defense any better than New England's? I don't really have an opinion on that yet. But what I am confident on is that Seattle, when they lock horns with the Saints, and there will be a reckoning, I think, in the playoffs between those two teams, I am confident that the Seahawks will be able to run at 4 yards per carry. And if you can do that, you make Russell Wilson's job a lot easier. Carlos Hyde, it's very interesting to me too. Well, I guess it's not interesting so much. It's more of a confirmation on something we saw last year with Chris Carson. My concern, if you buy the Fantasy Football Almanac, I love Chris Carson, but the concern is that he puts the ball on the carpet in key situations. I saw a lot of Carlos Hyde. Now, we saw Carson, I think he put he got the touchdown reception right at the end of the game there. And that makes, 3 receiving touchdowns for Carson on the year out of 2 games, which is quite interesting as well. You wouldn't have expected to see the hands, but he's got some hands, everybody. So that's good for fantasy football owners as well. But Carlos Hyde was getting some of these tough carries, through the middle of the line. And I think that has to do with last season. We saw Chris Carson fumble in some of these situations as well. So that's a storyline I'm going to be watching for fantasy football wise. Again, as a gambler, as a bettor, it's not really on my radar. I think the fumbling was a little bit fluky last year, so I'd be comfortable with Carson as an organization. But Hyde, he's a beast as well. He's got one of the weirdest NFL careers in the history of the NFL. You get the 49ers, he does well there. Then he bounces over, gets to Houston. Hey, what's up, Cameron? I would start. Yeah, absolutely. Who do they have? They have Dallas next week. I'm preparing my week 3 content, which I'm actually going to be recording right after this. Carson, yeah, start him next week. I was a sit this week on Carson, depending on your other options. But I was a sit just based on matchup. But I'm a weekly start generally. I think I might even have made the note 15 out of 16 weeks. I'm going to start on Carson. So definitely back on him there. Onto the receiving side here. DK Metcalf, 4 for 92. And a touchdown, 6 targets. But remember, Russell Wilson only threw the ball 28 times. So 6 of those targets, that's a pretty decent share. 4 of those for receptions. And this is against the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. That's not nothing, everybody. He's physically imposing. He's fast. I really loved, and, you see physically imposing players that kind of play like they're, we're live here, so I can't use profanity. Wusses, let's just call them wusses. DK Metcalf plays like a beast. He uses his body to shield the ball. He can catch in traffic. He can hold onto the ball if he gets hit. There's not a weakness in his game. You got to love that. Now, Tyler Lockett, 8 targets. I mentioned at the top he looked like he was a decoy. I apologize because I'm looking at the stats now. He didn't jump out to me on screen just because of how well Seattle played. I'll get to you just in a sec, Cameron. Lockett, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 67 yards, and a touchdown. So New England did, I think, what I thought they would do, and they kept him close. They didn't let him blow the top off the defense, but he was a little bit more of a factor in the game than I gave him credit for when I was watching him. Again, he didn't jump out to me. It was the running game and DK Metcalf that really jumped out at me. And I'm surprised too, because I theorized that Greg Olsen would be kind of a fixture in this game. So I told everybody, pick him up on waivers, and Gilmore's going to lock up, and then they're going to play cover 2, or they're going to play double on Lockett and all this stuff. Greg Olsen comes away with 1 target. Will Dissly comes away with 1 target. They end up going to their receivers. David Moore gets 3 catches on 3 targets and a touchdown. Freddie Swain, that 1 touchdown grab, kind of key at the end of the game there. So they're using all the weapons at their disposal pretty good. I'll get to the Patriots, but beforehand, Cameron, let's see. I have Carson, Kenyon Drake, and Fournette. Which 2 should I start? Well, we got a good confirmation. I think that Fournette stole that job today. And I was kind of that for me, that was more of a when, not an if. I've never been a believer on Ronald Jones at all. Not a big fan of Ronald Jones. And we saw, here's the thing I like about Fournette. He runs, we've seen it in Jacksonville when they had Blake Bortles. They basically ran all of their offense through Fournette. He's demonstrated that he can be a 3-down back with volume. He runs with power. So when it's time to close out games, they're not going to have Ronald Jones on the field. They have Leonard Fournette. By the way, Ronald Jones kind of got in the doghouse, which gave Fournette that opportunity. That was the worst hand. If you go back and watch the highlights, that was the worst handoff exchange I've ever seen in my life. I don't even think that Ronald Jones opened his hands more than like this. Is disgusting. You cannot justify that. That was pathetic. But that was one of the live games that I caught today. So let's see here. Fournette, where's he playing? Tampa Bay versus Denver. I don't like that matchup. Just Denver's defense is a little underrated. So I start Carson against Dallas, and then I start Drake. Who are they playing? Detroit. I like Drake and I like Carson there, but Fournette. Another thing with Fournette is I think he stole the job. I think most people would probably agree that he did, but you never know. So let's get 2 weeks of confirmation, especially when you have those options. Josh Jacobs, do I think will keep up the momentum this week? I mean, it's Monday, so if he's in your lineup, he's going to be in your lineup anyway, right? You're not going to switch him out. But I think here's my thing on Jacobs. I love Jacobs. I love Gruden. I love the commitment to the run. Similar to what I thought about Chris Carson this week, so I could certainly be wrong. But I think the New Orleans Saints run defense is strong enough to keep him at bay. And when I say keep him at bay, I'm talking about 3.5 yards per carry. And Gruden will have no qualms about giving Jacobs 30 carries at 3.5 yards per carry. Was that 95 yards, or no, it's 105 yards. So, I mean, he can still get you decent stats if he's not getting any explosive plays. The problem, I think, for this game is I would anticipate New Orleans being up by 2 or 3 scores kind of later in the game. And Jacobs, because he's more of a volume running back like a Derrick Henry in Tennessee, I think you might not see the crazy numbers, but I mean, it's very possible he gives you 30 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown. So even a bad week for him, he'll keep it going. I don't think he'll do as well as he did last week, but I think he'll be just fine. So New England, they're going into the fourth quarter. At that point, they're down by a score or two or whatever the score was. I can't really recall at the moment. I think it was like 28-17 or something like that. And I started thinking to myself, last year with Tom Brady there, even as poorly as that offense was executing last year, you always think like Tom Brady, they're so smart and they dissect the defense that, you have that confidence that somehow they'll get it done. And I don't really have that with Cam Newton. However, Cam looks about as good throwing the ball as he has in probably 5 years, maybe since his Super Bowl season. He looks very good. New England puts him in, of course they do, because they're well coached. They put him in great positions. And this game, he was 30 of 44, which that's not a terribly, impressive completion percentage. 397 yards and a touchdown against a defense that I think is pretty good. It helped them that Diggs got out and was, basically disqualified in the first quarter with a nasty hit on N'Keal Harry. But 397 yards. Again, you probably wouldn't think that watching the game that was the stat that he ended up with, but sure enough, he did. He also added 11 carries, 47 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And what I love about this Patriots offense, what they're doing right now, and they've been flirting with this ever since they brought Tebow in a couple of years ago. The Patriots, and even McDaniels had Tim Tebow in Denver back in those 2 seasons he was coaching there. They like to get that 3rd and short situation or 2nd and short situation with Cam Newton. And that play, the fake run in where he's kind of step back and pass. I felt like if New England went with that call at the end of the game, I feel like that would have worked, but what the hell do I know, right? I'm not a coach. Cameron, real quick, your question. Did you agree with that? Oh, I was just talking about that. That's funny. The play call at the end, I find it hard personally to second guess anything that New England does playing the ball. And I went back and watched that play 2 or 3 times. And what I saw was the guy who ended up making the tackle on Cam Newton. I think he was selling out for Cam Newton. So if they ran that same call that they ran, what was in the second quarter, whenever he, kind of did the jab step back and through, if they did that to the receiver, the question is, would he have had enough of a window? Because that dude was flying in. Would he have had enough window to get that over him? Because that receiver would have broken out free, and that would have been a bang, bang play. So I don't really have an issue with the way New England called it at the end of the game. The one thing I did think, and again, I'm not second guessing, but this is just a discussion here. The one thing I thought was interesting was The play that got them into the red zone, it was at the end of, towards the end of, certainly like within 30 seconds. They probably spent about 10 to 15 seconds of that clock. They had that timeout in their pocket. And I thought, take the timeout now. And then you have shots, even if you get tackled, and they did get tackled at some point. They used the timeout, just the play before. I felt like the timeout would have saved enough seconds on the clock to still allow them to use the middle of the field if they wanted to with the spike. It would have taken less time to get up on the line and spike the ball. But again, you're really splitting hairs here, and we've seen Belichick. I mean, they discussed it. It wasn't a spur of the moment decision. They were just fine. Let me see here. Do you think the Seahawks D will step up against the Cowboys next week? Look, I like the Seahawks defense. They've had 2 tough matchups offensively in Atlanta and New England to start the year. I don't like the matchup. And I'm going to be recording the Fantasy Football Fallout live in a couple minutes here, where I'm going to run through all the positions. Seattle is a waiver wire pickup for me this week, but there are a couple of other ones that I would suggest. So I like them. I mean, I'm a hold on the defense, and I'm certainly comfortable starting them because I like their defensive line. And when their secondary is playing, I mean, Diggs being out really affected I think the complexion of this game. When they're all there, I am a believer in this defense, but because Dallas's offense is showing itself to be quite talented and they're using all of the options in the field, there might be some better ones off of the waiver wire for you. Back to the statistics here. Sony Michel, 7 carries for 19 yards. Burkhead, 6 carries for 2 yards. J.J. Taylor, 1 carry for -1 yard. That is the Seattle Seahawks defense. We saw it last week when Atlanta tried to run the ball with Todd Gurley. They're going to be tough to run on all year long. That's why I do like the Seahawks defense. Again, it's just the passing offense and Dak Prescott's escapability. It's all about what options do you have. If you want to keep them and you want to start them, I'm cool with that. But, if you have like for instance, let me look. I don't have the defense notes in front of me, but I'm looking through the matchups here. Arizona versus Detroit is an interesting one. I know Detroit can put up points, but I like Arizona's defense. Tampa Bay versus Denver could be really, really good. They rush the passer very well. They stop the run. And their defensive backfield is a lot better. They added that safety, Antoine Winfield Jr. He could be a really nice one off of the waiver wire. Camera, let's see. That was an amazing game that they should play every year. I mean, that's why I'm doing I don't do these reactions a lot, but when I see a game of that caliber, especially this early in the season, maybe I'll do one. I think Kansas City and Baltimore play pretty soon, if not next week, pretty soon. Yeah, I mean, that's just such high quality football. Would any NFL fan, take your team bias out of it, would any NFL fan complain about the game we just got if that was the Super Bowl matchup? It was incredible. It was just incredible football. And that's what I was expecting. Like I say, that's why sometimes it's freeing to not really root for a team anymore. Thanks to Dan Snyder's awfulness in Washington. It frees me up to not really care about the result and just enjoy the game. But sometimes I do miss the camaraderie a little bit as well. Okay, receivers before we close out the video here. Edelman, eight receptions, 179. So holy 179 yards. By the way, that ball was in his grasp. Cam Newton fired a rocket ball. It could have been maybe, I mean, if you're really, being a negative Nancy here, 2 feet to the right, his right. And maybe that's a one game for the Patriots. But, Edelman also makes that grab quite a bit. And that ball was thrown at like 170 miles an hour. So, and it had to be. So it had to be to zip it in there. But this game really was a coin flip. It could have gone either way. So fantastic. One person I want to specifically talk about from a fantasy football point of view, N'Keal Harry. He looks physically imposing. The fact that he caught that ball, took the hit from Diggs. Yeah, he was down for a little bit, but he popped back up, played the rest of the game. I like the way New England's using him too. They're using him kind of in the slot, but they're using him in these quick passing options and letting him kind of use his physicality. He's somebody that you should be really looking at if you're hurting at wide receiver. I'm super deep in my best league, my primary league. I'm super deep at running back, and I'm really trying to find an answer. And the trade market isn't really tenable for me at the moment. I'm going to be looking hard at N'Keal Harry this week because I think, especially with Cam developing more as a passer, I don't think he's going to run for two touchdowns every game. There will be times where he's going to be hitting more guys deep down the field. And I think Harry is going to be a real big factor in this goal line offense and the short yardage offense. Demir Bird had 6 catches for 72 yards. Rex Burkhead 4 for 47. I mean, this was a great statistical day for New England's wide receivers. They just didn't get in the end zone because Cam Newton runs everybody over all the time. So I don't think that short yardage, by the way, again, speaking about the that play at the end of the game, I don't think that's Cam Newton's game where he's basically the defense is within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. I'm talking about goal line passing situations. That's never really been Cam's game. I mean, you could throw a fade there to Harry, but having Edelman run an in route and Cam kind of fitting it through the window, I don't know that that's the best thing for him, especially when you have these high percentage players where Cam Newton just roll them out and basically he can be he could pitch it, he could run it, or maybe dump it off in the corner of the end zone. And New England's gonna be tough to stop. It's going to take a top 10 team in the league to really put a hurt on them. New England, with the game they brought today, they probably beat 29 other teams easily. And they just ran up against the Seahawks team. That was actually my number 3 team coming into this week. And we'll see how the rankings go. I think the Patriots are number 7. I have a hard time dropping the Patriots after this game that they put up. And then the Seahawks, I mean, certainly I'm not going to drop. I just don't know. Can I put them again above the Ravens? Can I put them above the Kansas City Chiefs? The Chiefs didn't play well today, but do I drop? I mean, this is kind of my dilemma. Do I drop the Chiefs because they didn't play well and do it? I mean, this is like the college football team. Really, at this point, I have a 3-horse race. It's Kansas City, Baltimore, and Seattle. They're all co-number ones for me. So maybe that's the kind of the game I'll play. But those power rankings will be out like Tuesday or Wednesday. Let's see, Cameron, do you think the Seahawks are super? Oh, yes. I thought actually before the season, I'm sure you're probably new to the channel. I thought coming into the season, my Super Bowl prediction was Seattle versus Kansas City. And I have a hard time changing that prediction at this point. I mean, it's just high quality football. And I think this is the best defense that the Seahawks have had in like 5 years. And by the way, like for some reason, and again, I'm a bettor. I like finding value in NFL lines and everything. For some reason, the betting community has been down on Seahawks the last 2 years. I'm talking about futures, like saying they're only going to win 8 games a year. I've been over on all that stuff. Their line is always kind of low. I'm generally a bettor on the Seahawks. I just didn't like the line this week, so I just stayed away from the game. But yeah, I mean, the Seattle, for me, the NFC comes down to Seattle versus New Orleans, and I think Seattle just will probably be playing better at that time of year. And something, New Orleans, unfortunately for them, they're just always snake bitten in the playoffs. So I think Seattle, and plus, Russell Wilson's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Super Bowl pedigree helps. They can run the ball. There's really no weakness on this team. There really isn't. So absolutely, they're my favorites, and they're still my favorites in the NFC. And then Kansas City and Baltimore are my 2 favorites in the AFC, with Pittsburgh still as a dark horse. Roethlisberger's still a little bit rusty. I haven't watched that Pittsburgh versus Denver game. I'll catch that tomorrow on Game Pass or something like that. Cameron, huge Seahawks fan. Yeah, man. Russell Wilson. I think I'm not sure if I said this on any of my podcasts or anything like that, but Russell Wilson, super MVP candidate for me. Again, obviously you're going to be looking at Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes as MVP candidates, but I think Russell Wilson this year is going to be one of his best statistical seasons. When we look back on his career after he's over, I mean, the weapons that there's not a single weakness. Tight end, you got Disley and Olsen. Your top 2 wide receivers, one blows the top off the offense. One can also blow the top off the offense in DK Metcalf, but also play the possession role. You got 2 running backs that can run with power. Carson's displaying more hands than I thought he had. The offensive line's playing great, and I love the defensive line and the secondary. I mean, there's no weakness. So it all goes down to, I think, kind of health in the Super Bowl or the playoff run. Who's healthier? If Russell Wilson can stay healthy, I'm not going to bet against him. I can tell you that. Yeah. Hey, Clark, Cam did kill it, dude. Like Cam, I was suspicious about him this week, or not this week, this offseason. I wasn't a believer. I wanted to see it in action. I'm a believer now. I was wrong. I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong. Hey, guys, I'm going to close this one out. I'm about to open up a new live session. We're going to be talking about fantasy football. We do the fantasy football fallout every Monday morning. So I'm going to be talking about, basically a quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, defense, and special teams, who you should be picking up off of waivers. We always give away the Kicked in the Nuts award. So we have some players that really kind of booted me in the nuts. I'm sure everybody does. So check that out. That live stream is going to be up in about 5 minutes. I just have to pop the attachments up. And yeah, buddy, Pats look good. Top 10 team for sure in the league. Probably top 5 team when all's said and done. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. I'll take a quick break. So just stick around to the channel. By the way, like and subscribe. We can always use that stuff. I'm going to be doing more lives throughout the week, and we always do a ton of content. I don't know of any channel that puts out more. So there you go. We'll be talking soon. Catch you then. If I can turn this thing off.